Welcome to Connect, a program where we explore our connections with our community and with those of other communities. And I have with me three people from Santa Cruz al Salvador, and we'll start with Kent. Kent Madsen, why don't you start, let us know how you came to be in Santa Cruz.
I moved to Santa Cruz in 1981 as a software engineer to take a job at a young startup company called Victor Technologies, working on these newfangled things called personal computers. And so I landed in Scotts Valley, and I've been in the Santa Cruz area ever since.
Fantastic. Next to you is Ruth Cruddas, and introduce yourself and how you came to be in Santa Cruz.
Well, I moved to Santa Cruz in 1968 from New Hampshire, and I went to work at Plantronics, where I worked in the finance department, and then eventually moved into information technology.
Fantastic. And George, George Bunch, what is your connection with Santa Cruz?
Well, I'm a pediatrician. I had my pediatric practice for 35 years in northern New Mexico, where I'm from, and I moved here 12 years ago to be near my two grandchildren. My son teaches at UCSC ESL, and my daughter-in-law is a doula and childbirth educator. So we came here to be with the grandkids, and suddenly they said, well, they need pediatricians in Watsonville. So I've been working a couple of days a week in Watsonville ever since we moved here.
Thank you for that. It's very important.
Yeah.
Kent, can you tell us a little bit how this whole started with the connection with El Salvador and
Sure.
Santa Cruz?
I was a member of a church in Scotts Valley called Light of Life Lutheran Church, and along with my late wife, Christine. And along with us in that church, and a number of other folks, there was a pastor who had been pastor of a congregation in San Francisco that, as he described it, was half Salvadoran and half German. He and his wife were now members of Light of Life because he had moved down here to be a chaplain at Dominican Hospital. But he and his wife had been down to El Salvador during their Civil War, which was approximately 1980 to 1992. And they had visited various communities and done a number of things related to serving the people during that time. And he got the idea started in our congregation that we should have a global mission connection, and El Salvador was the familiar one, and there was lots of need. And so the four of us, Pastor Larry, his wife Kathleen, my wife Christine, and I traveled to El Salvador the first time in 1994.
Fantastic. And now I understand the group consists of many churches, quite a number of Lutheran churches and Presbyterian churches, and recently Peace United joined you. Could you tell a little bit about how that came about?
Well, my first visit to El Salvador was in April of '98, and when we came back, we visited various churches in our community to tell them our story of who we met, what we did. And little by little, they decided they wanted to be part of our organization. And I was going to St. Stephen's at the time, and we reached out to Christ Lutheran, Trinity Presbyterian, and then all the other churches, and that's how we grew.
Is it still growing?
It still is growing, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And you are the president of Santa Cruz al Salvador.
Board. Yes, ma'am. I came in 2008 or late 2007, and we joined the Trinity Presbyterian Church, and our pastor had a previous connection with El Salvador, and then she went on a delegation with Santa Cruz al Salvador and said, hey, we should belong with this group. And so our church joined in right about that time that we moved to Santa Cruz, and so became a full-time member of the group, and later on others joined in. And as we said, Peace UCC is just in the process of joining now, so they're the newest group still so we're still expanding. Yeah.
Because it's important work.
It is. It's very important, and we can do more with more people working together to raise funds for our scholarships and things we do in El
Well,
Salvador.
talk a little bit about the scholarships. You mentioned it. What do they do?
Well, we provide scholarships for children kindergarten through high school in Guillermo, Ungo. And
Which is in El Salvador.
In El Salvador.
It's a city?
It's
That's
a
county.
repopulated community
Ah.
in Suchitoto area, and the scholarships provide uniforms and school supplies and a hot meal every day for these children. There's 120 of them, and what we have done is we have connected these children to people in our congregations. They call them sponsors, and they call them prayer children. And so we build relationships between the sponsors and the prayer children. And every year, our delegation goes down in January, and the prayer sponsors prepare a 1-gallon bag of gifts for the children, and they really look forward to it. It's amazing.
And so are there more children in the schools? You can't, or are only 120 kids in the school?
Well, no, there's about 500 or 600 children in the school, but we sponsor 120. And what they do is they find children in families that are extremely poor and can't afford to send their kids to school. And so the scholarship committee in the school selects these children each year.
And so would it be then that if the kids did not have a scholarship, they would not be able to go to school?
Well, they still go to school. The government does. The government does provide uniforms for them now, but ours helps out. Our scholarships help out.
And originally, a lot of them did not have the uniforms, the school shoes. The government did not supply the things for the children when we first started, and now some of the high school kids, they don't supply that for them, so they get
the scholarship
through our scholarships,
Right.
and so that helps keep them in
So you
school.
kinda
Plus, they only get the scholarship if they maintain their grades, maintain good behavior, and as this Ruth said, to have a need for help. So the local committee decides who gets the scholarships.
Right. So you don't decide,
No.
they do decide, which is good, to keep it autonomous.
Yes.
Yeah, and so, but basically you gave the government, you modeled for the government that they needed to provide a little bit more besides, the brick and mortar for the schools, also for the uniforms.
Well, and that brings up the government changes, because when our group first started going, there was the very conservative, militaristic government that didn't supply all the health care and school and social welfare needs for their Salvadorans. And so the changes have taken place enough that they are more progressive and are supplying more of the healthcare needs and the school supplies and the school uniforms. So that's helped, and we can then use our funds now. We've started sponsoring university students. We have 15 students that are in secondary schools that got scholarships to pay for their room and board, school supplies, and tuition for university. And it's been great, because some of those have even now come back and are working in the community in the area after having gotten a scholarship through our group.
So, and that's why you call yourself Building Relationships for Better Lives, because you help them with some seed money, getting the scholarships, learning what they need to learn to get jobs, to provide for their community, and bring it back to them, and then get the whole community. So the whole community benefits from
Correct.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Do I
One
understand
of the requirements of getting a scholarship is they have to do social work.
Oh, great.
And many of them choose to come back to the school and do social work in the school or in the community. So that's an encouragement.
That is.
Yeah.
But it's also important to note that this is a two-way street, in that we are given benefits by knowing these people, the resilience especially, and deep love of the Salvadoran people helps all of those who participate learn from that and learn from expanding our horizons beyond our local community.
Because of the relation, because I believe the students who receive scholarships, they communicate with their sponsors.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yes,
And then, of course, you have the delegations. What happens during a delegation?
Well, one thing, the delegations, we mentioned the prayer children we sponsor. So delegation members who go on the trip, we get to eat with the families of the prayer children. So all of the delegation members get to share a visit with the families of the prayer children, and they tell amazing stories about what they went through during the Civil War days, the struggles in El Salvador. Many of the folks in the area where we go were part of the protest against the government that was very harsh on their own people. And so we've heard so many harrowing stories. A lot of them were in refugee camps. A lot of them were part of the guerrilla movement to try to improve things in El Salvador. So those meals that we share with the families is really a big part of our delegation to get to know the families and building relationships personally that way for better lives for them and for us. We understand what all they've gone through and how miraculous it is that they're so positive, so happy. The kids are smiling. They're always love to see us as we drive up in a van or bus. A lot of the kids will come running out to see the group when we come. This is usually once or twice a year we have a delegation that
Once
goes.
or twice a year. How big is the delegation?
It's anywhere from 4 or 5, the fewest up to 20 or so.
Right.
So it's usually around 10 to 15.
And besides meeting with the families, what other things does the delegation do?
We have a scholarship award ceremony where
Okay.
all 120 students come and get their little packet and their gift from their sponsor. We have a craft project that kids from 2 years old up to grandmas
To 92,
come
yeah.
and participate in the craft project, and
All to build community.
all to build,
strengthen it.
yeah. And the former principal of the school said to us one time, he says, you know, these craft projects are helping with the hand-eye coordination and communication, and so we felt that it was advantageous to the
Has an
kids, as
educational
it was to
aspect.
us.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Educational aspects all the way around.
Right,
Yeah.
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to add that we also, depending on the delegation, schedule in some, I guess you'd call it sightseeing or tourist time, and see some of the finer, interesting parts of the Salvadoran countryside. So that's in addition to our work in both of our communities.
And one thing that we added about 10 years ago when I was going with the delegation is a medical component to where we have worked with the clinic. They have a small clinic that actually we have helped to support through the years, and we brought down medical supplies. We brought down fluoride for painting the teeth with fluoride because the children there had no dentist available at all in the community. They weren't getting any fluoride for the teeth, and they had terrible teeth. When we would go down and help in the medical clinic, we would notice how bad the teeth were in the children, and so now each time we go down we try to bring some fluoride
The
and paint
smiles
their teeth.
with healthy teeth.
Yeah, right, to make healthy teeth, and now again, as progression in the government help with the medical care, the government has taken over the financing of the clinic, so we no longer have to spend some of our funds on supporting the clinic. We do voluntarily bring down some medical supplies, but basically they've taken over that, so we can use more for scholarships and other things.
And I understand you have also dug some wells and things like that?
that was the
We reached out to another community, El Pilar, and we helped build a well in that community and bring water to a much needed area. El Pilar is a small community in the La Libertad area of El Salvador. The conditions there are similar to what they were in Guillermo, Ungo 20 years ago.
Wow.
So we're starting in a new community.
So you know where it can get you.
Yes.
Because you have
Exactly.
been successful with it.
Yeah.
So that brings me to, okay, so the people are happy to see you. How do they, after all that they've gone through in the 80s and some of the 90s, how did they keep up their spirit? What do they do? What is the magic they have that other people don't have?
They have so much hope. They don't give up. They're fighters. They don't give up. And I remember walking arm in arm with one of the lisiados in the community. He was missing his arm from a hand grenade that had gone off in his hand when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And we were walking arm in arm, and I looked at him and I said, Mauricio, how can you walk arm in arm with us? And he goes, it was your government and my government. We're people, and we love people. So it was a real
So
no animosity towards us.
amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I have found wonderful and what has kept me going back to El Salvador is the people. They're amazing. They really are. And they welcome you into their home. And they share a meal with you. And it took a few years to gain their confidence to where they felt comfortable telling their stories. And now it's like going and visiting family when we go back.
So would you say that this time Guillermo Ungo is a community where gangs are not taking over?
Correct.
Because of the fabric of the community?
Yes, the community
strong
is
enough?
very close-knit, and the school is protected, and gangs are not allowed in the community. So it's very safe, very safe.
Of course, what do you mean by not allowed? I mean,
Well,
it's kind of a little membrane around the community that cannot be penetrated through by
well,
the
it's a
gangs?
community of people who live and breathe and work together and support each other.
Right.
And they saw struggle during the Civil War, and they know what it's like to protect their environment, and so they work together. And
Well, I was also going to say there are regular patrols in the area of Guillermo Ungo. I haven't necessarily seen them around El Pilar, but we have seen patrols in the area of the police. So they're present, even though this community is a ways from the capital. But as Ruth said, the community is very strong, has very strong leaders. And I think all that is what makes it much harder for the gangs to get a foothold.
yeah,
And it also means that your work can be, like you said, you bring it to El Pilar, but there could be an expense. That would be probably an excellent foreign policy, right?
yes,
Sure.
yes,
think so.
We think so.
I mean, you're modeling it. I mean, you're modeling it for El Salvador of giving the kids their uniforms, but you're actually modeling for the U.S. government that if you really want, not a huge stream of immigrants coming into this country, build the fabric of the communities, because they will. All you have to do is give them a hand, and they'll, on their own, will build on it and build a community. Is that what's happening?
But they don't want to leave their country. They love their country.
Good.
They just need the opportunities, and that's hopefully what we are helping them with, is providing them with education. And now we've got university students, and they are an amazing group of young people, very inspirational, very motivated. I mean, these students get on a bus like at 5 o'clock in the morning into San Salvador, which is a 2-hour ride and a few bus changes, and they go to school all day. And then they take a bus home and they do their homework, and if they have to, they help with the family, and you know, to make ends meet, and they're so motivated, and they want to help their country.
I was going to add on a little bit more when you talk about perhaps foreign policy, but one of the things that we've done, in addition to actually helping provide a well and the enclosures for the wells and so on, we also helped them work through some of the official organization that community needed in order to be recognized as an official community and not just a group of people with houses on this space of land. So, and I think we helped Guillermo Ungo with that to some degree in the early days, that our, if nothing else, our support was the encouragement for them to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, and the other community we work with, El Pilar, was basically just squatters in some land on a hillside that didn't have any ownership or use. So they were scattered out in that area, no well, no sanitation, no electricity, no running water. And when we first built that first well there to help out, there was another group built another well. They had finally pure water, and now we are building latrines or composting toilets to try to keep the well water clean. And the community is coming together. We actually financed a leadership workshop on a series of Saturday mornings where a group, a handful, a half a dozen or so of the community people that are willing to take up leadership roles came and got trained in how to do that, and now they are taking over deciding who gets the latrines, where does the well going to be located, and now the government is stepping up and providing a small school in the area, which they didn't have. There's some electricity now available that they can tie into as long as they can come up with a deposit for the electricity. So the community is beginning to come together during these 5 or 6, 7 years that we've been involved with them and helping them to kind of focus on a unity, a structure with the leadership of the community.
Excellent.
One
So
of
that's
the other
been good.
benefits, one of the other benefits for the community is they had to get their legal status.
Oh, right.
In order for us to build, you know, stationary latrines,
Right.
they had to get their legal status. Otherwise, the government could have just come in and
Wipe
taken
it all out.
everything out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the two communities now have it's their land where they live.
So I'm beginning to understand that really not what you're not doing is charity, and that's why you call it building relationships for better lives. You're literally building things with them.
Yes.
And so how much input do they have in what to tell you what they need? I assume you're not going to go in and say, okay, this is what you need, well, let's do it. How do you establish that?
We have meetings with the leaders in the community, and we say, what are your priorities?
Right.
And each kind of group has, you know, like a priority. They want electricity, or they want water, or they want sanitation, or they want education. And so we said, well, you have to come together for the whole of the community,
Right.
because we can't do everything.
No.
We can do what we can, and we will do what we can, but you have to come together. And they do it. They did.
So when our delegations are there, we meet with the leaders of the community and try to work out plans for the next year about what we're going to work on.
And you
then
go
we
twice a year, you said?
Well, once or twice a
Once or
year.
twice.
The last couple of years it's just been once, but sometimes we go twice.
In January.
Yeah.
In January. When the
That's the
weather is
dry season down there. It makes it easier to get around.
good. You were going to say something, Ken?
In the earlier years, we didn't have all the communication opportunities that we have today with
Computers.
online communications, even reaching the people of El Salvador and their mobile phones. But when we went in the early years, we would leave with an idea of a priority, but by the time we came back, they said, well, we managed to take care of that a different way. Now we're interested in some other priority. So we've always had to kind of roll with what they feel their priorities are. We do feel it's important for us not to go in and dictate.
Right. It's
Right.
like you said, it's a two-way street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we're almost done with our time taping here. What is your connection with, because we have quite a number of El Salvadorian people in our county, what's your connection with, and do you establish relationships with them also?
Well, we do reach out to, I live in Watsonville, and there's a huge Salvadoran community in Watsonville, also in Santa Cruz. And so when we have a fundraiser or an event, we always make sure that we invite our Salvadoran friends, because we have a lot of them here.
Right.
And my goddaughter and her family live here, and they're
Nice.
from El Salvador. And she loves it here. She misses her home. She's one of our scholarship recipients.
Oh, she is.
Yes. But the other thing I was going to say is we'll have a pupusa meal, and that's a traditional
Right.
Salvadoran meal. And my dear friend Padrina makes pupusas for all of our churches when we have a pupusa meal and a fundraiser.
So part of what we do is have these fundraisers to help support our scholarships and our projects in El Salvador. The pupusa meals, we have a benefit night at Shadowbrook Restaurant coming up the 19th of November, so we get funds from that. We have a wine tasting at Bargetto's each year. And so various projects to help raise funds for for the things. And some of the Salvadorians, like Padrina, help with some of the projects. So.
Your work is never done.
Absolutely
No.
not.
And the communication and the building the communication and building community is extremely important. And I also really enjoy it that so many churches have come together and for this project. Santa Cruz al Salvador.org if people want to know more. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you at home for watching this program. We will see you again next time. Thank you, Kent Madsen, Ruth Cruddas, and George Bunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.